Hi everybody. We've been receiving some great tracks, people sending them through online, and it's been really impressive, some of the recordings people are getting from home, which is great, and it's been fun mixing them. I just wanted to send out some quick tips on recording drums, particularly close mics, and how to get the best out of your close miking for drums. So yeah, check it out. Here it is. The first thing we're going to deal with is the snare drum. When you're recording the snare drum, I think the main thing that I find is they're often too ringy, that there's too much tone in them rather than a crack. So often you'll see people record snare drums like this. That's usually a typical kind of miking setup you'd see, which is fine. It works sometimes for some snare drums. I find mostly it's a little bit better if instead of angling into the drum, that you take the angle and you actually point it across at the stick, where the stick is hitting the snare instead of getting down. And you'll find that when you do that, you'll get less of that ringy tone that's sometimes undesirable, and you get more snap and crack on your snare. So when you're doing that, try that. And also, instead of recording with the drum mic, the snare mic placed here, try and point it around that way a little bit more, so that the back of your microphone is facing the hi-hat. So you're rejecting the sound of the hi-hat. If you're going to point it in that direction, you're going to get an awful lot of hi-hat bleed in your snare drum mic, which is something you don't want. Then you start boosting the highs and you get all this horrible hi-hat coming through. So yeah, place it in that direction and try placing it, pointing at the stick instead of towards the snare. That's the first tip for your snare. Let's go to the bottom snare mic. Similar kind of thing, using it for rejection with a bottom snare mic. Try and face the bottom of the snare mic towards the kick drum, but still pointing at the wires. So often you get a lot of bleed from the kick drum. Sometimes people use that, which is fine, but if you don't want it, yeah, point the back of that microphone towards the kick drum, so you're rejecting the sound of the kick drum and it's pointing up towards the snare. That's pretty simple. The next one, a very similar thing for the hi-hat. The main problem with a hi-hat is often you're going to pick up a lot of the snare drum with a hi-hat. So try just angling the hi-hat mic away, so you're rejecting the maximum amount of snare that you can, and you've got some independence when you're mixing with your hi-hat. So there's some basic tips. There's one other tip which isn't not really to do with close mics, but it is pretty cool. You can use it as a one microphone drum technique. If you've got one drum mic, this is a really good thing to do, but I often like mixing this microphone into a multi-mic setup. And it's basically having a microphone in Omni, so it's picking up everywhere, not just in front of it, all around. And you point it basically directly above the kick drum, and it picks up basically a bit of everything, and you get this really tight, close, punchy drum sound. So you get a bit of cymbals, you get a bit of kick drum, you get a bit of snare. It's a really close picture of the drum kit. So if you've got a spare mic, or if you've just got one mic to record drums, that's a great way to record a drum kit. Yeah, so try those things at home, and keep sending the tracks through, guys. They've been great. Cheers.